MOTB.
Most weddings are such comedies. Not that they're intended as such, but since weddings are high-stakes occasions involving amateurs under pressure, everything never goes right. The central figure of this drama is the mother of the bride, the MOTB. Not the bride and groom or the minister, mother. Normally, a polite, intelligent, reasonable, and sane human being, mother was mentally unhinged at the notion of her daughter's engagement. Not that she was unhappy, as is often the case. Quite the contrary. She was overcome with joy, and just about succeeded in overcoming everybody else with her joy. Nobody knew it, but this woman came with a script for a production that met with the approval of Cecil B. DeMille. A royal wedding, fit for a princess bride. The father of the bride began to pray for an elopement. She had 7 months to work on it. No detail was left to chance or human error. Everything that could be engraved was engraved. There were teas, showers, and dinners. An 18-piece brass and wind ensemble was engaged. The bride and groom met with the minister only 3 times. The MOTB was in his office more often than the cleaning lady. Well, the bridesmaids' gowns were made to order. The tuxedos were bought, not rented, mind you, bought. And as if that wasn't enough, the engagement ring was returned to the jeweler for a larger stone, quietly subsidized by the MOTB. When I say the lady became unhinged, I mean unhinged. Well, the juggernaut of fate rolled down the road. The final hour came. Guests in their formal attire packed the church. Enough candles were lit to bring daylight back to the evening. From the orchestra gushed great music. And the mighty MOTB coasted down the aisle with the grandeur of an opera diva at a premiere performance. Never had the mother of the bride taken her seat with more satisfaction. She had done it. She beamed, she glowed, she smiled, and she sighed. Well, the music softened, and 9, count them, 9 chiffon-draped bridesmaids lockstep down the aisle, while the groom and his men marched into place. Finally, the wedding march thundered from the orchestra. Here comes the bride, preceded by 4 little enthusiastic mini-princesses chucking flower petals, and 2 munchkin ring bearers, 1 for each ring. The congregation rose, turned in anticipation. Ah, the bride. She had been dressed for hours, if not days. There wasn't an ounce of adrenaline left in her body. You see, left alone with her father in the reception hall while the march of the maidens went on and on, she walked up and down the tables of gourmet goodies and absent-mindedly sampled first some of the yellow, pink, and green mints. Then she picked through the bowls of silver nuts and ate all the cans, followed by a cheese ball or 2, some black olives, a handful of glazed almonds, a little sausage with a frilly little toothpick stuck in it, 2 shrimps blanketed in bacon, and a cracker piled with liver pate. To wash that down, a glass of pink champagne. Her father gave it to her to calm her nerves. Well, what you noticed when you looked at the doorway of the church was not the bride's beautiful dress, but her face, white. For what was coming down the aisle was a living grenade with the pin pulled out. The bride threw up. And by throw up, I don't mean a polite little lady like her with her handkerchief. I mean she puked. She hosed the entire front of the church, hitting 2 bridesmaids, the groom, 1 of the little munchkin ring bearers, and the minister. had thought of everything. Well, having disgorged her hors d'oeuvres, her champagne, and the last of her dignity, the bride went limp in her father's arms. The groom collapsed where he stood, too stunned to function. And the mother of the bride moaned, slumped over, and passed out cold. What happened next, in front of the church, was a fire drill that only the Marx Brothers could have topped. Groomsmen rushed about heroically, bridesmaids sobbed, little mini princesses squalled, and people with weak stomachs headed for the exits. The smell of fresh puke wafted from the church. Only two people were seen smiling. One was the mother of the groom. The other was the father of the bride. Well, what happened next? We all went back to real life. The guests were invited to adjourn to the reception hall, though they did not eat and drink as much as they would have under other circumstances. The bride was consoled, cleaned up, fitted out with a bridesmaid's dress, and kissed and hugged a lot by the groom. She'll always love him for that. But when he said for better or worse, he meant it. Well, the congregation was reassembled. A single flute played a quiet air. The words were spoken and the deed was done. And everybody cried as they're supposed to do at weddings. Mostly because the groom held the bride in his arms throughout the entire ceremony. And no groom ever kissed the bride more tenderly than he did. If one can hope for a wedding that it be memorable, this one was a raging success. Nobody will ever forget it. And they lived happily ever after, as most do, happier than most, in fact. They've been married for about 12 years now and have 3 lovely children. But that's not the end of the story. On the 10th anniversary of this disastrous affair, a party was held, a feast was laid, and best friends were invited. 3 TV sets were mustered. Remember, there were 3 video cameras at the scene of the accident. All 3 videotapes were shown at once. The effect was pretty interesting, especially with the stop-action stuff and the running commentary. It got especially gross when you see all that in super slow motion. The part that got the most cheers and toasts was when the camera focused on the grin of the father of the bride as he contemplated his wife being revived. I really like this part of the story, not because of the party, but because of who organized it. Of course, the MOTB. The mother of the bride is still at it, though she's not lucid these days. She not only forgave her husband and everybody else for their part in the debacle, she forgave herself. And nobody laughed louder and harder at those videotapes than she did. There's a word for what she has: grace. And that's why the same grinning man has been married to her for over 40 years, and why her daughter loves her still.